Wayne Carl from Combat Insiders, all the way from Australia. And today I have a very special guest, Matt Jones from ISOHEALTH. He's the mastermind behind one of the best, well, in my opinion, best BJJ schools in Australia. He's also the coach of some of our favourites on Combat Insiders in Brad Wally, Dan Curry, and Shane Mitchell, along with so many other guys, which we'll talk about today as well. So welcome, mate. I know you don't do this a lot, so I really appreciate your time. Welcome.
Oh, thanks very much. It's an honour to be here, mate. And you guys do such a great job with the fellas that it's, it really is good to be able to be on when you asked. And like I said, I was pretty surprised that you asked. So, thank you.
I was surprised you said yes to a head like me, mate. But we'll do enough about me. Over to you.
A bald head and a beard. Who could fault that?
Yeah, true. So BJJ, that's your specialty. One of the first things I want to ask is, what Dan are you? Who actually trained you? Like, who was I think you called it a master in BJJ. Where did you learn the art of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
Yeah, good question. Apologies in advance because this could be a bit of a long answer because it's a bit of a weird one. But initially, I've always been here in Adelaide. And so when I was learning, it was a matter of kind of zipping around trying to learn what you could. And initially, I trained with a guy named Sean Black, trained with him for about 6 months, and then he stopped teaching. He was a really, really nice bloke, and I had a good experience training there. And then when he finished up, in the meantime, training with Sean, I'd become friends with a bloke named Claudio, who was a nice fella, and he wanted to learn some of the spine care stuff that I do. That's what I'd always done full-time before I was doing this. I still consult in spine, but only to one particular organisation these days. But yeah, Claude was like, oh, hey, well, you can't get in and train much. Sean's not teaching at the moment. Did you want to sort of swap time? And I was like, that sounds like a great idea. So in my little rehab studio, I'd teach him some spine stuff. He'd show me a bit of jiu-jitsu. And then, one of my best mates at the time, who still is, a guy named Nay Simmons, who's my right-hand man here at ISO, lovely fella. He wanted to learn some self-defense stuff and wanted to learn some BJJ. And I've just been, trained with Claude and then just kind of wrestle with mates who'd done stuff in the past. It was all very kind of ad hoc, and then we're at a training camp in Singapore. I was awarded my blue there, and Nay's like, oh, Khan, you got to show me some jiu-jitsu now. Like, at the time, white belts were running clubs all over the place. And, he's like, you're a blue, so you've got to have something to offer. And all right, so I started showing him some stuff, and it all just kind of started to happen from there. So teaching jiu-jitsu was an accident, and because he was such a good bloke, you couldn't say no to him, And then as far as the training side, as I was teaching Nay, then it was a matter of starting to, save up some pennies and zip over to Melbourne when I could, and spend a weekend training with someone, come back, work on whatever I could, and it's always been that way. And I was really, really thankful to have some great people around me. Like, I was awarded my purple belt by a fella named Luke Beston up on, he's around Newcastle. And yeah. Luke and I had met because he had me up there to teach a stand-up seminar. Oh, sorry, more specifically, it was a self-defense seminar related to, stand-up and clinch stuff. And, so we got along really well. I was awarded my purple from him as we got to train together more and more. My brown and black I was awarded by a guy named Tiago Ferreira, who's a Brazilian fella who lives in Sydney, he lives on the Central Coast more specifically. He's an absolute legend. If you're ever lucky enough to be in the Central Coast, he's a great bloke to train with there at Gracie Central Coast, and he teaches on Wednesdays at Gracie headquarters, like Gracie Sydney HQ near the airport. And then my first degree was awarded to me by Henry Akins, who he's an LA-based fella, and I've been over in America a lot for the last few years and everything. And normally they're about 1 month every 6. And that's who awarded me my first degree. So sorry, long-winded answer, but I thought it's important to make sure I give credit where it's due, and I really appreciate everyone that's taught me stuff. So that's me.
Definitely. You sound like you've drawn from pretty much a lot of people in that BJJ world and pretty much formed ISOHEALTH. One of the things I watch a lot of your fighters, they do like the top position. And I just wanted to get your take on that. Is that something that ISO Health or one of your partners or yourself, is that your philosophy on it, that, top position, strong grounding? You look at some of your guys that are underneath you and they're so heavy on top. Is that coming from you, or is that just a coincidence and I'm just making it up?
No, it's a really, really astute observation, actually. I'm a big fan of that idea because, I'm a self-defense instructor first and foremost, and, teaching guys, training guys for competition. I couldn't be happier with, some of the great success we've had in jiu-jitsu competitions and continue to have. Still, that was an incidental, almost accident as an offshoot of the self-defense training, and the MMA's been the same. And at the end of the day, in a self-defense situation, the last thing you ever want to do is be on bottom. So, I've had guys, at one point we were known mainly for our triangle chokes in competition jiu-jitsu, and guys, would sit to guard and use that effectively. But there were really deliberate reasons that we would do that and have them do that in a competition sporting jiu-jitsu setting. But as far as, as soon as people are swinging for the fences, being on top, if you're on bottom and you make one mistake, you're in a really, really bad way. If you're on top and you make a mistake, there's a possibility that you can still either stand up and recover. Even if you end up on bottom, you might be able to at least re-guard. But top position, gravity's your friend, right? So we really, I'm a huge fan of that approach, and I still want the guys to have a good guard, and a lot of them do. But for me, the guard's like CPR. Make sure you're proficient in case you need it, but hopefully you don't need it.
And a live example of making mistakes on top. Brad Welly won really well in his last fight, but he was swept from the top and did recover fairly quickly. So if he wasn't on top, I know Wayne Cummings actually was able to get out underneath him and transition away from him, but he was able, because he was on top, he could pretty much straight back into control, put his knee on his arm and pound away, which was a fantastic result for you guys.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm really proud of Brad. And there was one little, obviously things go wrong and from time to time. And like you say, that's a great example of it. And we've already been working specifically on. In the time that I've been training Brad in his grappling, there's been a couple of really key things I've been focusing on, and he executed all them beautifully. And there's something else to address after that fight, and that'll be fixed before his next one for sure.
It was a fantastic pro debut, but what I want to talk about, man, you obviously had a few conversations anyway, and I want to touch on some of the great work that you've done for the police force. So tell us a little bit about that.
It's funny, people sort of, guess where you might be, but no, for me, it's just been like, no one in particular, it's just been like law enforcement in various jurisdictions, just trying to help them when they have certain issues come up, and the landscape of things have changed a little bit. I remember when I was a kid doing taekwondo, when I very, very first started doing martial arts, you'd hear this idea that, trained people don't get into fights because, honor and all that other stuff that's supposed to be a part of training. Standing there and bowing makes you a good person, no more than walking down the middle of the road makes you a car. So you can't really work on this assumption that just because people train, they're going to be nice folks. And, the landscape of things has changed for law enforcement in recent years. And not only are people, everyone who's watched the UFC knows that grabbing onto someone's head at some point is a pretty good idea. Right. And so they can run into some challenges that sort of evolve as far as, criminals evolve. And then there's the whole political discussion as the fact that, generally people are a little bit more comfortable arguing with authority these days, and so it can bring about a set of some may have encountered previously. So just different places where I am from time to time might get me to come in and do a little bit of help in that department.
So the next time I'm in Adelaide and I get into a bit of trouble and a police officer chokes me out, I'm just going to blame you.
It's actually, funnily enough, that's a really important one on the way from white to blue belt. That's actually one of the really important things I teach all my students, where, chokes will be considered a certain level of force. In most cases, a lot of places, they'll be considered lethal force. And so having them understand that although it may seem far more humane to choke someone out in a self-defense situation than perhaps, various alternatives you could use, it could be the thing that gets you into way more strife. And so that's, all that kind of stuff, understanding ways to take people down without accidentally smashing their head in the concrete. Don't smash someone's head in the concrete by accident. That can be a whole lot of other issues. So yeah, it's all, different places will get me to help them in that sort of area.
True. And obviously I'm from Melbourne, so I love the AFL. And something else that I want you to talk about, because you do so much for the community as well as everything else, but you also work for the Port Adelaide Power. So let's talk about that. What are you doing with them? Like, what sort of aspects are you bringing from BJJ into the AFL world?
Yeah, mainly the biggest thing I've been focusing on is heel hooks. Because no, I'm just kidding. No, actually, someone did heel hook someone in a rugby game a while ago. Did you see that on YouTube?
Yeah,
that got sent by about a dozen different people. Yeah, places will bring me in to help with different bits and pieces, and with those guys, it's going in helping with the grappling side of things and how it can relate to body on body impact and all that kind of stuff, and your posture for that, etc. They're a really good bunch, and it's funny because I've been with them for, gosh, when was it? I think they first contacted me about middle of last year. That super professional and really organised mob, and at the time I was sort of had a bunch going on and wasn't sure how we'd do things time wise. And once I went down and actually met the coaches, they were such good blokes. I was like, man, these will be a really good bunch to work with. And as is the way, often the fish rots from the head down, but the opposite is also true. So I was like, man, if the coaches are such a good bunch, there's a good chance the lads will all be great blokes as well. And they are. I can't say enough good things about them. So, it's just a matter of figuring out ways to shuffle my schedule around and make it happen and be able to be there. So, been down there quite a lot for quite a while now. And, as I say, just can't say enough good things. It's definitely, I can't think off the top of my head of an organisation I've worked with that was any more professional or just full of so many people with a great attitude. I finish a session and you can't stop people from helping you get your stuff up packed up together and everything. It's just really nice to see that in sport, and it's really at the highest level. So
especially in that age bracket, because they are young men, they're under 30.
Yeah.
And what millennials are like a lot of the time. So, for them to be respectful and things like that is fantastic to hear. There's one other thing that we did talk about. Yeah, go for it. Sorry.
Sorry. No, I was just agreeing. Yeah, 100%. It's just great seeing from anyone.
Yeah. So one of the things that we did speak about when we did chat was you actually stopped training and stopped coaching for a few years because of a conflict of interest. Let's talk about that. You actually stepped away from mixed martial arts and coaching because of some other things that you were involved in, and they not a conflict of interest, but they sort of you looked at your values and things like that. And it was like, well, what do I do here? So discuss pretty much why you stepped away. And this was a few years ago, but you stepped away for a couple of years.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah. And sorry, I might have either myself or someone else might have given you slightly the wrong impression with it. I was still coaching all the time, and as far as everything we were doing in at ISO and coaching people for jiu-jitsu comps and all that sort of stuff. But just as far as the competitive MMA side, that was the one thing I deliberately pulled back from back in probably about, I think it might have been around, probably around 2012, 2013, because we'd had some guys fighting and they were doing really well and everything was looking good. But as I started, I was consulting at the International Spine Centre and I was one of the consultants there for a few years, and doing so much rehab, and not just with spine, but other kinds of injuries that tie in with that. And I had that bit of ethical conflict as far as how much involvement I wanted to have when people are taking concussive strikes to the head. And and so while I was undecided on how I felt about that, I thought it's best I'm just going to put that on the shelf. And I said to the boys, look, I'm not going to train anyone to fight for a while. They all understood. And, until I could kind of work that out, basically. Pardon me, long story short, though, Dan Curry and Matty Dockrell decided they wanted to have their once only, once ever, one and done fight. And that was a couple of years ago now. And they come to me one day, and they'd been doing great in jiu-jitsu tournaments and everything. And they're like, oh, we just want to have one fight, just one and done. And they're like, we know that you don't coach guys for that anymore, but, we they're clever lads. They're clever lads, and they kind of use my own words against me because they're like, oh, you always tell us this stuff. You're either part of the problem or part of the solution. And they're like, we really want to fight, and we're super keen to have a crack. And we feel like if you help us get ready, we can get ready in a pretty safe and constructive and structured sort of way. And I was like, man, you guys are turning my words against me big time. I said, is this like the drug dealer who's on the corner saying, hey, they've got to buy them somewhere, they may as well buy them from me? And anyway, coached him for that one fight, and Dan had a terrific, round 1 TKO. Matty, same thing. And after they'd both had such good wins, obviously they got a taste for it. And I'd sort of reconciled that in my head anyway. I looked at it and I thought, man, who am I if these guys are such good lads? And the only reason I coach is I absolutely love my life. And if I won the lottery tomorrow, I'd still be spending my time the same way I am right now every week. And I feel really fortunate to have structured a life that's like that. And I did tons of stupid stuff when I was young. I mean, I broke my neck when I was racing BMX. And then, I got out of hospital and I had an exercise bike at home because I was doing interval sprints. Once I did start walking again, I had this big metal thing on after I'd been flat on my back for a while. And I was doing sprint training then because I thought I was going to get back on the bike and race soon. I was an idiot. And I'm like, man, these guys are going to do this more safely than half the stuff I did. So if I can help them do it in a way that's going to be productive and as healthy as we can make it, then that seems like a better option than just kind of being, oh no, I don't want to be a party to it. So yeah, hopefully that all makes sense.
It was good of Dan to stick to his one and none too. How many fights has he now had? I think.
Yeah, I know, right?
I think he's up to 7 or 8 or even more, same as Matt. So, it was good. And obviously he's still coaching them. So I want to shift gears and move over to the UFC. And I'm not going to ask your favourite, but who impresses you BJJ-wise in the UFC? Like, not your favourite or anything, but who do you look at and go, you know what, his technique's good?
Yeah, man. I mean, there's obviously anyone at that level is going to have a lot of great stuff going for them. Damien Meyer's always been a standout, hasn't he? Like he's just incredible. And then you've got your other guys where they may not be specifically from BJJ backgrounds, but I mean, it's all grappling. And I mean, the way that Ben Askren and Habib and everyone's doing their thing is epic. And then I think it's interesting too. There's some guys who do some really good stuff that perhaps don't get a lot of credit for it. And I mean, I remember some of the way Michael Bisping moves and some of the stuff he's done when he's found himself in a bad position on bottom, so underrated and underappreciated in that aspect. And then also, I mean, it's a bit of a controversial one at the moment, especially I suppose, but a lot of people were hammering McGregor about his supposed lack of ground game. And far out, man, it's Nick Diaz. Like,
yeah, the Diaz brothers. About that. Obviously, his game had evolved, and he showed that in the second fight, he was able to get out of some positions a lot of fighters wouldn't have got out of. So, yeah. So
yeah,
for
and
me,
he'd even hit a sweep there at one point.
Yeah, I don't know what you think about T-City Ortega. I think he's jiu-jitsu, Oliveira as well. That new breed coming through, the way they're able to just snatch up a neck. I probably should have done Brazilian jiu-jitsu because I don't have a neck, so I don't think anyone's choking me out. Just throwing that out there, mate.
I remember to still finish people when they're over the chin. That was a pretty hot topic after the Askren and Lawler fight, wasn't it? And
your
people
opinion, was he out? Was Lawler out?
I don't know. Watch that really closely, and I mean, I think the only person I don't know. I'm not sure if even Robbie would be able to answer that because guys get some, If he happened to be out, sometimes you're out and don't even realise you come to and everything's golden at the time. That was a tough one, man. I mean, the other thing is too, he's super high level, again, underrated. The fact that he could move Askren around the way he did, he's no joke as a grappler. He's epic. And sometimes people will drop a fairly limp arm, like in the position he was in. If he had kept his arms posted and quite stiff and strong, that was only going to create more and more pressure on his neck, because if my arms are stiff, my shoulders are stiff, and if you've got a bulldog choke around and you're cranking into that, the stiffer I am, the more pressure there is through my neck. So one of the things someone might choose to do in that situation, and I'm just looking at this purely from the outside in, But this is a time where maybe you opt to let the rest of, you let your limbs relax a lot, or otherwise, the appearance of limb, to be able to feel where the pressure is and start to move your body with that rather than be fighting against it. So I reckon there's a lot of stuff to consider with that, and it's such a grey one. I mean, I don't know. That was one where we've seen plenty of jiu-jitsu comps where people get put out and the ref takes longer than that to intervene, and that isn't always a good thing. But I would have thought maybe a couple more seconds on that before separating the two blokes might have resulted in a bit of a better situation for everyone, just because, and again, easy to be, we're not the one who's having to ref that fight, right? But kind of feel sorry for if Robbie was in that position and it turns out that it shouldn't have been stopped, feel bad for him. If Ben had actually, if he's finished Robbie there, now he's kind of, people are hitting him with all this bullshit. When I say bullshit, I don't mean respectfully questioning and trying to analyze it. I'm talking when people want to slam him about it because, people can be people. It's kind of left that for both guys. So it's kind of like no one won and no one lost as far as the post. I don't mean as far as the fight, but as far as, all the other stuff that surrounds the post-fight side. Yeah, maybe just a few more seconds before the separation might have saved everyone from that aggravation for them. I feel for both blokes.
Yeah, it's a no-win situation in my opinion, because I don't think they need to run it back. Robbie's been a legend for years. Askren got other things to do. So as much as everyone's calling for it, I don't think they'll fight again. That's my opinion. So
yeah, it doesn't sound that way, does it? It doesn't sound that way. And Askren doesn't seem like a guy who's going to be too bothered by what kind of onslaught he's getting from people's opinions. He's out there, he's doing his thing. He's still the undefeated bloke, and one of my mates once said, they'll talk shit if you win, they'll talk shit if you lose, so you might as well win. And Askren's winning.
Ben cops it a lot, from his curly hair to his dad bod to everything like that. Now, for me, I'm jealous of his hair because I don't have any, and I wish I could wrestle like him. So, mate, I'm going to throw into my rapid fire 5, just quick. I've got 5 quick questions. Adelaide or Melbourne, where would you live?
Where I am right now. Yeah, Melbourne's an awesome city, and if I had to move out of anywhere in Adelaide, I think Melbourne would be it. But man, I love Adelaide, and the people here. That's the biggest thing. Like I'd be happy to live in some crappy isolated who knows where with whatever weather if I got the right people around me, and I love the people I've got around me here.
Yeah, I thought I'd throw that one in, mate. Prime GSP or Prime Silver? They never fought. If they did back in the day, who would you have?
I'm going to be completely shutting off the brain and just going with the heart here, in the sense of I don't know either of the blokes personally, but one of my mates, who's a good mate, is one of Anderson's trainers, so I have to say Anderson.
Very good. Dream holiday destination. Where do you, like, if Jeannie goes, okay, here's $100,000, where are you going for a couple of weeks?
Man, I reckon I would be just outside of Vegas so that I can, a couple of my best mates live around there. We can all still train in the garage. We can go shoot guns during the day. That's what's happening.
Sounds good. All right. Are you a Porsche man or a Harley man? Right at the front, you got to pick one. You're taking the Porsche, you're taking the Harley. What are you taking?
I'd have to take the Porsche so I could have my dog in the back. BMO's got to be able to come for a ride.
Good answer. I always say the Harley, but 5 years ago I was ordered to get off my motorbike because of a back injury. So I'll always go the Harley. Do miss riding. The hair blowing back in the wind I don't have. The wind blowing the hair I don't have. So last question. So you're stuck in an elevator and you can only have one person in there for 24 hours. You've got Brad Welly, Dan Curry, or Shane Mitchell. Who are you having?
Actually, this is an easy one. Brad would take up the least amount of space by far, so we'll be more comfortable with I'll be able to still stretch out if it's Brad.
But out of the three of them, I reckon Brad would talk the most and be the most annoying.
Oh, he's so funny, man.
We're the same height. He can beat me up when he sees me next. So I'll leave that there. And, mate, going back to your competitions, did you have a go-to sub? Was it a triangle? Was it a head and arm choke? Going back to...
Man, I wasn't competing in jiu-jitsu. I taught it purely for self-defense. And I mean, as far as submissions I like to do, Obviously, I'm always training with the boys, and we're always doing rounds leading up to their fights, and do a lot, especially a lot of positional training and stuff. So, you know, have the guys, if there's a position they're wanting to work on, often say if it's an escape, I'll get them to put me in the bad position so they can kind of, you know, feel what I'm doing there, and it kind of helps with the learning process. So Shane and the lads would be the ones to ask as to what my go-to is, because, yeah, I don't know, I just grab what I can, I suppose.
No, I haven't done a lot of BJJ, but I tried to triangle someone one day. I'm only 5'5", so me trying to put my legs around someone's head just didn't actually work. So I try to just get back up and throw punches because I'm too short. But me and Brad have that joke. He's got a half an inch on me, he reckons. So, yeah.
There's a photo recently where he looked taller than Shane on Instagram. So
I think he's pretty good at. Editing things, mate. One thing I did want to discuss is I watch a lot of the streams with DFC, and I see you walk the guys to the cage. Now, you're not actually competing. Tell me what it feels like emotionally. Like, how do you keep so calm? Because you've got this look like you're so calm. Do you get emotional or nervous for you guys? Because obviously you're invested in these guys. One, are you nervous? And if you are, how do you keep, you know, such a straight face? Obviously, you've done it a lot. You know, talk to us about, you know, how you actually keep so calm.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad I appear calm. That's a good thing, I suppose. It's I don't know. You know, it's funny because I mean, I care about these dudes so much. They're just absolute legends, and there's no one I train who where it's just kind of coach and student. You know, you become friends, of course, and so you do feel super invested. And I mean, I remember one time when the guys first started fighting again. So, you know, back to Dan and Matty Dockrell. I thought about that very thing, and as I went to, you know, we walk in there that night, and I'm kind of thinking, oh, you know, obviously you care about them, and you can feel nervous. And I was like, man, you know what though? It's not I don't have the luxury or privilege of feeling nervous because I've got to be here for them. And so any emotion I have in relation to this, if there's any possibility it can get in the way or mess with their head, you don't have that luxury as their coach and their mate. So it's like I've got to put that on the back burner and just focus on what has to be done for them and be there for them and do whatever I can for them. And so I find taking that really rational approach to it and compartmentalizing it helps a lot because they don't need to feel that. They've already got enough stuff they're thinking about. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Yourself and Craig obviously work together. So obviously you've got cardio flex.
Shane's striking coach. Yeah, I'm his grappling coach. Yeah.
Yeah. So how does that actually work? Because I don't think there'd be too many gyms that have such synergy between ISOHEALTH and cardio flex. Do you train together at all? Do you do notes? Is it something like going into a fight? Do you communicate with Craig? Okay, I think this, or he thinks that. Like, how do you do the transition from striking to BJJ? How does that actually work?
Yeah, sure. Good question. It's actually super, super straightforward. I mean, I'm a really black and white kind of guy, and it's really about the only way my brain works. So, when Shane and Craig first came to me about that, I was like, well, obviously everything you're doing has been, you know, especially like the striking, they've had some great striking stuff come out of cardio flex and that. And obviously the grappling was nothing wrong with that either. But when they decided they wanted to talk to me about this, I was like, well, yeah, easy. I'll coach Shane's grappling, you're coaching his striking. And it's actually just really clean cut like that. Like, you know, Shane's down at my place a lot during the week for all his grappling, and he's down at cardio for his striking. And then obviously we'll have, you know, the boys will spar together, like say on a Thursday night, you know, Shane and Dan and Matty and everyone like that. But yeah, it's just really that simple. Pretty clean cut. And same with Brad, you know. So yeah, Brad will be down, and Brad will still have a move around, and we'll do sparring where it's going to be MMA sparring, and you know, I've got a lot of flyweights there that he can move around with. But really, yeah, he's down at ISO to grapple, and he's at cardio flex to work on his striking with Craig and also with Jared.
Sweet. I'm going to change gears. Obviously, Josh was supposed to, from Combat Insiders, was supposed to be in
Sure.
the interview, but it's 2 a.m. over there, so we've let him go to sleep because apparently the roofers were annoying him all night. But he is a gamer, and he did ask me. He said, make sure you ask him what game he's playing because he wants to inbox you his player because he wants to join in.
One of my mates taught me into Blackout. We were still playing GTA 5 till not long ago, so we were really stuck in a time warp there. But the boys finally got me onto giving Blackout a go, and begrudgingly I switched it on, and I freaking love it. It's a bloody great game. So yeah, there's myself and one of my best mates here. He's also one of my brown belts. He has kind of weird hours like I do, and we have a few other mates who are in lines of work where they have crazy hours as well. So yeah, you tend to find we'll get our little squad together and have a couple of sessions when I get home from training, and yeah, it's good. It's good fun.
No, the last console I owned was the Mega Drive, so it's actually quite funny. Shane was hanging it on me a little bit, and I walked past one of EA Games, and I walked in there, and even the bloke behind the counter said, "Mate, you're in the wrong spot." So I tried to keep up with it, and I just went, "Nah, can't do it." But mate, it's been fun. But the last question I've got for you is, who has helped you build a lot? You did say that, even if you won Tats Lotto, you'd still do what you're doing. Who's helped Matt
100%.
build that life that you've got now and to be so happy? So let's shout out to the people that you need to thank.
Oh, thanks, mate. I'm really glad to have an opportunity to say it. It's super grateful to Mum and Pop, Len and Barb. They're legends, and we didn't always have it easy. As I was growing up, we sort of had our share of challenges, but they always helped me keep that right mindset with things, and I'm super grateful for that because that's so important to be equipped with when you're an adult. And man, can't say enough amazing things about, like, my wife just has the best mindset as well. Like seeing her, when she was battling all her cancer stuff with, she had stage 3 brain cancer, is just a little bit serious. Incredible. She'd still go in between. She went in between surgeries and she'd still be training people. It's just amazing to see. And I couldn't be more grateful to have someone like that by my side. And then as far as like, your more kind of martial arts, she obviously coaches and that. But I mean, as far as like my own coaches and stuff, I mean, before I get to them, I've got to say thanks to my mate Cam Dorwood, who actually got me to try BJJ the very first time. And then also my mate Nato Simmons, who's my right-hand man at ISO, was the one who pushed me to start teaching because he wanted to learn from me. And if he hadn't asked me, there would never be a martial arts program. We were a rehab studio for spine injuries and all that kind of stuff before that. And then obviously my instructors like Tiago Ferreira, who trained me up and helped me so much, and through brown and black belt and purple and everything. And then, Henry Akins, who, the LA based, and just an absolute legend. And, not just as a trainer, but also as a mate and supporter, and striking. Jamie Brown, a mate of mine who lives in France now, but he really helped me understand a little bit about the striking stuff, and just so grateful to have good people around me. I could spend a day talking about how grateful I am to some of the people I've had in my life that have helped make it into a good one.
I was just about to say, let's go into the other sports that you used to do. So you did archery. What other sports did you actually do other than archery leading into BJJ? What were some of your passions?
So I was racing BMX up until I broke my neck, and then I had every intention of going back into that, but right at that time, I broke my neck when I was 15 doing that, and I was going all right. Got it on video actually, so you'll be able to find that on the internet somewhere if you want to see it. I can shoot you a link. At the Nationals, they film everything, so we've got some good footage of me breaking my neck there. But I was doing that, and I planned on returning to it, but I saw how hard it was on Mum because I was racing away up in Cairns. And then she flew up there when she was notified about my accident and all that, 'cause we were pretty dirt poor at the time, so it was kind of up there without them. And I saw how much pressure it put under her, and then, it was probably, I was flat on my back for 2 months where I could only move my eyes, and then gradually started getting around again. She didn't need the headache of worrying about me racing BMX again, so I put that on the back burner. Played volleyball, was right into that and loved that, and had some great coaches and learned some good lessons there. Archery, these days I'm mainly, if I'm obviously I love all the jiu-jitsu side of everything, but if I'm not doing that, if I had a spare minute, handgun stuff is a lot of fun. I've got a really good instructor for that, who one of my jiu-jitsu students is a handgun national champ who teaches me a lot of that. And yeah, man, I just learned some really good lessons from all those things, and so fortunate to have some terrific coaches where they give you, like I say, those universal truths, so feel free to pick my brain about any of that. If you ever want to pick up a bow and arrow, happy to help. And
do you throw axes with Shane Mitchell? Do you get out there with Brad?
No, we haven't done that yet. He's mentioned that, but we've just kind of, man, right now I haven't had a spare minute to do anything outside of the work stuff, really. So we might go shooting. Brad and Shane have asked if I'll take them shooting when we're over in America, and we might have to do that. But yeah, I haven't had a chance to head down and throw an axe with him yet, but it's on the list.
Nice,
how about yourself?
Mate. Sorry?
I said, how about yourself?
Yeah, look, I played AFL. Well, not AFL, but wasn't that good at it, but I played AFL, did karate, did a bit of boxing, hence the reason I love the UFC. I would probably miss the grappling and the BJJ. I was more of a stand-up. Wasn't that good, but I love mixed martial arts as a whole, hence the reason why I started writing about it, started flying in to watch local shows. But yeah, that's my story, in a snippet, that why I love what I do. But yeah, today's about you. I want to thank you for coming on because when I actually asked you, I thought he may knock me back, and I was actually stoked. And you can actually ask the boys at Combat Insiders. I said, look, I'm going to try. But, mate, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Yep. My name's Wayne.
Thanks for everything you guys are doing.
Insiders. That's Matt Jones from ISOHEALTH in Adelaide. Guys, catch you next time.